Hi, Anna.
Hey, Ben.
So we had to pre-record this because on Saturday when we're playing it, you are going to be away from your computer, which apparently is possible to be for minutes or hours at a time. I've kind of forgotten what that's like, but it sounds nice.
Yeah, it's my mom's birthday. Well, it was my mom's birthday on Wednesday. So we're going out of town tomorrow immediately after I do weekends. But I'm really happy that I'm at least getting an opportunity to congratulate you on your book. I'm super excited for you. I had the pleasure of reviewing, it's like a draft of it, obviously. And it was an important book, and I'm sure that you've gotten some grief, some criticism from people who I think in some cases have this weird intention to misrepresent the argument that you're making, but the argument you're making is an important one. And I think it's necessary for the left to really consider how damaging it can be when we're going around and like rejecting people for whatever reason, for whatever cultural issue or rhetoric issue we might have with them. We do need to build a broad coalition, and that's something Jane McAlevey talks about all the time when it comes to organizing. You're going to come across all sorts of people you might disagree with, but if you have class in common, you really do need to be working together to accomplish what we need to accomplish.
Yeah, I saw actually people got a little mad at her after the Bessner stuff, which kind of felt like in a very different way, a little bit like the same thing that that just sort of being a bearer of bad news and not just saying like rah rah everything's great. You should you should be happy with how everything's going is taken is taken badly sometimes, but it's still. But yeah, no, I really like that reference. So yeah, I appreciate it, and I really appreciate you stopping by, and that the dedication at the beginning of the book says to all where is it? To all my friends and comrades in left media and organizations like the Democratic Socialists of America, and even in some of the least dismal corners of academia, who are helpful pushing back against the nonsense critiqued in this book and to create a smarter, funnier, and more strategic version of the left. And so anyway, really means a lot to me that you've been in that category, and thank you again so much.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate you having me.
Hello, friends. I wanted to do a quick shout out to Ben Burgis because I just finished his book, Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. I gotta say, you have to read this book, especially if you are a member of the left, because this book is focused on the left and its various, I don't want to say pathologies, although maybe that's the right word, but definitely bad habits as of late, because we all know that our arguments are the correct arguments. We know that our prescriptions for the problems that face the world are the correct prescriptions. We know that our analysis of capitalism is the correct analysis, yet somehow the rest of the people don't believe us when we tell them that. And that's the key thing that we need to learn how to do as a political movement, is to become a mass movement where the majority of people believe the things we do. And Ben identifies various issues that the left has that prevent us from being that mass movement. He talks about the cases of Dave Chappelle and Natalie Wynn, but also deeper analyses of why we are the way we are and what we need to do to change and become a movement that can actually win power and change people's lives for the better, because that is ultimately what our goal is, right? It's not to be a member of some cool club, because let me break it to you, the left ain't that cool. We could be cooler, or at least we have to become that if we want the rest of the people to want to join us. So go out and read Ben Burgis's Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. You won't regret it. It's short, it's fun. He's a very witty writer. He's very gregarious as well. he's both thorough, but also willing to play devil's advocate for the positions that he may disagree with on, and so that gives it a very kind of holistic and comprehensive look. So go out and read Canceling Comedians While the World Burns. You will not regret it.
Ben, cheers. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's no Miller High Life, but, it'll work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, can actually, we could actually go to the Oberon. We could actually go there this summer. We've both been vaccinated.
Oh God, yeah, we've got to do that. Yeah, trip to Kalamazoo, get some Bilbos, and get a little bells. Yeah, that would yes. Yeah. Let's do that this summer for sure.
Yeah, said Oberon. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't actually have separate breweries for like the different. There's like a Two Hearted Brewery and an Oberon Brewery, and
there should be a separate Two Hearted Brewery, but that's fine. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I can't stay on as long as Cale just did.
Nor are you expected to. That was
good. If anyone wants to throw in a really quick super chat and try to get me canceled, I'll take one question that attempts to cancel it. If anyone
take one shot at humiliating himself with his answer on air, but fair enough.
But yeah, I just want to say congratulations. Like this is great. I think the book, as everyone has been saying so far, this book is really important. It's really getting at a real pathology that exists on the left that we need to, if we want to become not just a fringe thing and really become a major movement that affects change in this country, we've got to be a lot smarter about how we deal with this stuff. So, I hope everyone buys this book and reads it, and it gets a lot of attention.
All right. Really appreciate that, Ryan. I know you're only getting a very little bit of Ryan Lake now, but you can get some more on Wednesday when he and Forrest, of course, and me and Jennifer Burgis are all going to be talking about A Clockwork Orange for the first season 2 movie stream. So looking forward to that.
We'll see if we can get canceled talking about that movie.
All right.
Which seems very possible.
Fair enough. Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey guys, sorry, I literally was holding on to the thing and it just toddled. But congratulations, Ben, on your book.
Thanks, Danny.
I got a drink for the occasion.
What are you drinking?
Maker's Mark. It was what I had, but I should have probably put some ice in it. But I decided against it in beautiful sunny California, which you can see behind me right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going to be seeing you in beautiful sunny California. Yeah, very soon. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm actually seeing our mutual friend Megan Day later today. Nice. Yeah, so it'll be a good time. So how's everything going? What are you doing to celebrate the book? Well, we're doing this. Mostly gonna be goofy and cliched and crack open some champagne with Jen later, but we're doing this right now. Nice. Which is actually a double book celebration because of course today's the publication day for this, which is what we're talking about. But Bhaskar Sunkara and Mike Beggs and I just signed a contract for another book that's not coming out for a very long time, but we just signed the contract with Verso. So late 2022, maybe about feasible socialism, what a realistically imaginable version of socialism we could actually have, might look like. Which, of course, I suppose if there was a place to do some sort of transition back to what we were talking about before the intermission, this would be it, because the possibility for pitching socialism to people, might be much greater now, because we are so far from the Cold War. If you did have anything you wanted to add to that conversation. Yeah, I mean, one hopes.
I mean, I guess the big fear is that one doesn't want to be in, the market.
right.
There were two options: either we'd win or we'd lose. Hopefully, we're not on the wrong side.
Yeah.
But yeah, one hopes that some sort of solidarity will be forthcoming in the United States and eventually global context. Yeah, I hope so.
Fair enough. And I should actually say, people watching, something I think one of Danny's most interesting takes is one that doesn't come, about that Cold War stuff, is not one that comes naturally to me, because I'm very instinctively averse to anything that sort of smacks of cultural explanations for anything. But they do have their place every now and again, and it's about the sort of peculiarities of American culture, and how the sort of insane ambitions of the American empire are actually relatively unique, among world powers, and that a lot of what was going on in the Cold War was just sort of transferring it to the Russians and attributing to them our insane delusions of grandeur.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the desire to really dominate the world is a peculiarly American thing, which one, in my opinion, links to sort of the radical foundations of this country. I mean, obviously, this interacts with material conditions, of course, but the puritanical, literally in terms of Puritan and Protestant sort of universalistic ethos, is really embedded in this country, and I think that reflects the type of putting on other powers, a motivation similar to the United States's. Of course, the American analysis didn't come out of nowhere. Marxism, Leninism is theoretically a global project, but I just don't think the Soviet Union was especially, either whatever, committed or able or both at various moments to that sort of global domination that the U.S. was. So I think that, and I think that's still going on for example today with China.
Fair enough. This is not a natural transition, and also you should not feel any obligation here, because you did not volunteer to throw yourself on the sword like Cale did. But we do have a super chat question if you do feel inclined to take a shot at it.
My favorite bad Joe Rogan take. Well, I mean, I think it's funny. I was actually watching Rogan yesterday, and it was just sort of how would I phrase this? There was a dismissal of the problem is it's not wrong. So Bill Burr was talking about the Chaz, right? Yeah. And he was give it 3 days, when they have to get the garbage or something. And I didn't like that easy dismissal. He's not wrong, but I just don't sort of easy, look at these dumb lefty idiots thing, because it's not Elon Musk is any more, sophisticated. So yeah, I guess that's sort of general, just cliche dismissal of sort of strange left-wing protest politics, which has its problems, but I just don't like that easy dismissal. That's his worst take, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say that I was listening to a lot more Rogan last summer, because because I would listen to it when I went for a run, because this is going to sound really insulting to him. I actually have mixed feelings about Joe Rogan, but it's just a lot easier to listen to when you're sweaty and and kind of out of it, and not really sitting there thinking about it than most of the lefty podcasts that I listen to. And he did have some very bad takes, during the post George Floyd unrest. I think he was just basically, I think he took a lot of kind of right-wing talking points about riots and stuff much more seriously than he should have. And I remember that even specifically about Chaz, that I think there's there's a left critique to be made of Chaz,
for sure.
The idea of doing stuff like that, but also I think Rogan bought in way too much to some hysteria about how it was being run by some warlord, and just all this like really over the top fear mongering that the right was doing about it at the time. So
right. And it was like Bill Burr was like, Joe, what are you afraid of? They're going to get 4 blocks and 5 blocks, and then what do you think is going to matter? I mean, and that what I thought was the right thing, and then sort of
that is exactly the right way to push back against that. Which
what are you worried about? I mean, which is pretty much the story of today. And Ben, I got to go in a second, but I think we should toast ourselves for getting January 6th right before everyone. And I have not heard any apologies from the people who came after us.
No, I sure have not. All the people who took as an article of faith that we were like 5 minutes away from mass executions and the imposition of fascism, the end of any pretense of bourgeois democracy on January 6th, because 800 out-of-shape boomer conspiracy theorists were wandering around taking selfies.
You mean it wasn't the greatest attack on our democracy since the Civil War?
The Republic almost fell. What can I say? We came very close to the Republic falling.
Yeah, which also is just one of those things. It's like, even before we found out everything we found out since then, that the Brian Sicknick thing was bullshit, that his death had absolutely nothing to do, I mean, maybe the stress, but not in any other sense, right? He certainly wasn't killed in any sense, by rioters. That the zip tie thing was bullshit. That the guy who's photographed with the zip tie was a bartender who was there with his mom. He picked up some zip ties that were dropped by a cop and got his picture taken. Those are, every element of this, this is like a dumb right-wing riot.
Yes, it was a riot for sure. Yeah. But
that is all that it was. The thing that makes it much worse than stuff like Chaz is that they had a really bad cause, because they were told all these lies about how the election was stolen, and they also just have like really bad, gross right-wing beliefs. But it wasn't there was zero threat.
Yeah, zero.
To regular bourgeois democratic institutions, none whatsoever. Yeah. And that line from Joe Biden's pseudo State of the Union, whatever that was, that Forrest just quoted about. I say pseudo State of the Union because I understand for some reason it doesn't count as according to Hoyle State of the Union. I'm not quite sure how that works, but doesn't matter. But that line from Biden's State of the Union that Forrest just quoted about how it was the worst attack on democracy since the Civil War. And it's like, okay, so you're talking about a one-day riot where some boomer QAnon freaks stormed around, the Capitol, and then that was it. And they didn't even kill anybody. I don't know. I think that maybe the ghosts of Cheney, Shermer, and Goodwin, have something to say about whether there are worse attacks on democracy in the last 100 years than that.
Absolutely. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And of course, in our memory hold world, everyone just moved on to the next thing. But I think that we shouldn't forget the absolute hysteria that defined November to March-ish, February-ish in our politics.
Especially because it's still possible that we're going to get some bad new anti-terrorism laws over it. Right. So, anyway, really appreciate you stopping by, brother. I will see you for real in a couple of weeks.
Bye, guys.
So I'm in good spirits, man. I'm in even better spirits, though, being able to hang out with you and celebrate the launch of your new book, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, shit. I'm going to I almost forgot myself here. There is a rule on this channel that was about to violate. Yeah. Well,
cheers, man.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
How does it feel? I mean, now that you're rolling in dough, you've made your millions, it's time for you to just, to admit to everybody that you have left the left.
Yeah, that's right.
It's your big cash out on the way out. And now you're going to be joining our friends, Prager and right. Adam Carolla on their next cancel culture documentary.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about working with David and Adam. They're great guys. I think David in particular, I just enjoy him because Dave Rubin, I think that the single biggest thing you would need to say about him is that he's really intellectually stimulating company. I mean, there's just a barrage of insight there. Like that's just a mind that never stops working.
Well, in a world when everything is seeming like it's more and more about buzzwords and figuring out what team that you're on, it's very exciting to see somebody who is willing to just sit down with folks and have conversations about ideas.
Yeah, high level.
High level ones is for sure too. But honestly, man, in all seriousness, I'm very, very thrilled that this book is out. We talked to Ben on Left Reckoning on Thursday, and you've been all around telling people about this book. But it's a really great one, and y'all should definitely pick it up if you haven't already.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I really enjoyed that conversation, and also I should say not just the conversation about the book, but I ended up coming back on the post game and we shot the shit about Cuba and other subjects for like well over an hour, and that was fun too.
No, it definitely was. I mean, we really needed it too. I mean, I love hanging out with Matt, but it's nice to sort of spice it up a little bit too. And have you on there like the good old days.
No, exactly. I was going to say. I mean, used to see you guys every single week. So. So yeah, that was good. But and of course we also so we're seeing you here every week for a while, but you actually you made your long thread and return to Texas, and you actually have a life outside of the apartment and staring at the computer now.
It's actually it's pretty nice. I have big plans for today, but almost all of Austin right now is underwater. We've had a pretty intense rainstorm, so I've been out, dealing with that. But yeah, no, a little bit more responsibilities. I got a bunch of kois. I have a big koi pond in my backyard now that I have to take care of and garden and things like that. A lot more expansive of a life than in Brooklyn, especially during the pandemic when you're just sort of watching the world move around you.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, I really, but anyway, it is always really good to see you, and we, and we do need to, even though I am actually happy that you're not living the life you were in pandemic Brooklyn, we do need to arrange a way to semi-regularly talk to you about country music again, because that was a lot of fun.
No, absolutely, man. I've been actually doing these deep dives into Billy Joe Shaver. I don't know if you remember when we covered him on GTAA, but the videos you can see on YouTube of him performing are just something else. He's really not only is his music good and his lyrics are fun, but he's such a performer. And as somebody who spends a lot of time in front of the camera right now, I'm trying to pick up some of those little shaky mannerisms and things like that. Yes. So definitely would be happy to do a deep dive on Billy Joe Shaver sometime in the future.
Yeah, let's do that for sure. Thank you, Andre, for the super chat. Yeah, I think so eventually, but I just don't even want to tempt fate by making any speculation about the timeline. This stuff happens incredibly slowly, and I mean, people. I mean, I know, look, lots of people are frustrated because this book that came out today, I've been promoting for approximately the last 20 years. Publishing takes a long ass time, is the point.
There's a bit in the book where you talk about the Trump administration.
I know.
Out of fear the Trump administration is going to do something. It's like, oh man, I forgot that was.
Yeah. Remember when Donald Trump was president?
Yeah, exactly. Well, on audiobook stuff, y'all also need to pick up the Matt Lech system. I don't know if he's ever shown this to you before, Ben. Are you familiar with this?
Oh, the sped up audiobooks?
No, the sped up stuff is one thing, but he uses this computer voice. He has this text to speech software. So every book is an audiobook for Matt, but it's read to him in this horrible computer voice I can't do a good impersonation, but I'm talking about that old school computer readout, and that's how he does most of his reading these days. So if you need the audiobook, it's already there. Just hit up Matt for the Matt Lech high level idea system.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean, I guess I guess like when I go on the PragerU tour, I probably won't see you anymore because like I'll be too afraid that if I'm around any leftists, they're gonna ask what I'm going to debate Sam Cedar or something, and I'm not going to want any part of that, during that part of my life. But
it's been fun, man.
Yeah, it's been a blast. It's been an honor. But no, yeah, thank you so much. This wouldn't have felt right without you in it. So thank you.
Of course, man. Cheers and congratulations again.
If you're going to do a book launch, which in person or otherwise, you got to do a reading as part of the book launch. So there it is. This is going to be from chapter 2, Scenes from a DSA Convention. Going to read just a few pages of this, and then maybe take some more questions. If anybody has any last super chats asking us cancellation worthy questions, to throw out, before we finish. But otherwise, this will be kind of the last chunk of the stream. So, the Democratic Socialists of America held their national convention in Atlanta in August 2019. The day after the convention ended, Tucker Carlson played carefully selected clips from the proceedings on Fox News in order to portray the organization in the worst possible light. In 2015, DSA had a few hundred members. The most recent figure I've seen in 2020 was 70,000. During this period of explosive growth, DSA has played an outsized role in promoting the 2 presidential campaigns of Bernie Sanders and putting Medicare for all at the center of the national political conversation. Its chapters have organized brake light clinics in which DSA members volunteer to swap the burnt-out brake lights of passing drivers in order to minimize their interactions with the police. It's become fashionable in some quarters of the left to mock this activity, but I love it. Such clinics amount to a useful form of street theater that builds goodwill in local communities, makes an understated but deadly serious point about the imbalance of power between ordinary working class people and increasingly militarized police forces, and may actually save a life or two in the process. The left could use more of that kind of creativity, not less. DSA members have also walked picket lines with striking workers, organized tenants to fight the power of landlords, helped undocumented workers resist deportation, and generally been present and accounted for everywhere that people are fighting for various kinds of social change that make the society around us at least slightly fairer and more equal. At the same time, instead of being content with such reforms, they've helped to revive long dormant big ideas about how we could change our whole economic system to get at the root of many of these problems. So yeah, the DSA, I'm a fan, but nothing I saw in Tucker's clips surprised me. The first thing his viewers got to see was the speaker laying out a list of rules ranging from, quote, no strong sense in the chill out room, unquote, to a requirement that delegates, very few of whom, needless to say, were either deaf or fluent in American Sign Language, use ASL applause, i.e. wiggling their fingers, instead of actual applause in order to accommodate anyone in the room who may have some extremely rare conditions, making them essentially especially sensitive to loud noises. The next clip features a delegate from California who starts out with, hey guys, and launches into an angry lecture, haranguing the 1,500 or so delegates about the problems posed to the noise sensitive by, quote, whispering and crosstalk, unquote. Not to be outdone, an even angrier voice rings out from the crowd, scolding the comrade from California for using gendered language. Guys, Tucker has more clips ready and more snickering to do. That he's cherry-picked a few minutes spread throughout a long weekend goes without saying. Tucker Carlson is a toxic propagandist whose specialty is promoting the agenda of the anti-immigrant right by portraying the left as indifferent to the concerns of the American working class. He could have shown his viewers a few minutes of the fiery speech delivered to the convention by Cecily Miart Cruz, the vice president of the United Teachers Los Angeles, who just helped lead 30,000 teachers out on strike for better pay and smaller class sizes, with overwhelming support from the larger community. Or he could have thrown in a clip or two of delegates voting on a set of priorities for the next 2 years that included not only mobilizing for Bernie Sanders and continuing the campaign for Medicare for all, but starting major new pushes on housing and childcare and for Green New Deal. that could create millions of well-paid public sector jobs and help save the planet in the process. If Tucker had shown any of that, it would have ruined his narrative, so he didn't. But that's to be expected. You might as well get angry at a spider for building a web. What I find incomprehensible is the behavior of the people in the clips he did want to show. He didn't get this footage by sending spies into the convention with hidden cameras. The DSA itself was streaming it. Everyone knew this, and everyone seemed to think we're building the kind of movement where no one is allowed to make a loud noise was a good face to present to the world. To anticipate a tedious but inevitable straw man, no one thinks accommodating the disabled is a bad thing. That's not the issue. You can engage in a reasonable level of accommodation informed by advice from qualified medical professionals without turning the dial up to 11 and acting as if there are no competing goals to weigh against the benefits of maximalist accommodation. The problem isn't even just that it was painfully obvious that none of the people we saw in the clips or any of the off-screen organizers who went along with bizarre rules like no clapping, so much as pause to consider how all of this would look to any viewers who weren't immersed in the subculture of the left. That's certainly part of the problem, but there's a deeper issue. What Tucker's clip so perfectly captured was an unmistakable tone of scolding and one-upsmanship. It was a race to see who could go the furthest in the direction of finding ways to prove their own moral virtue by finding ways to object to the utterly unremarkable behavior of their assembled comrades. This reeks of an IRL, in real life, version of the pathology of left Twitter, so memorably critiqued from the left in left-wing British cultural critic Mark Fisher's classic 2013 essay, Exiting the Vampire Castle. Fisher writes, "The Vampire's Castle specializes in propagating guilt. It is driven by a priest's desire to excommunicate and condemn, an academic pedant's desire to be the first to be seen to spot a mistake, and a hipster's desire to be one of the in-crowd." If you've logged any serious amount of time in left spaces and you don't recognize anything you've seen in Fisher's essay, I envy you. I make no claims here about how widespread any of the attitudes or practices I'm critiquing may be. If fewer people are trapped in the vampire castle than I imagine, that's wonderful. But we should still work to free those few, especially considering that they're often the loudest and most visible representatives of our movement. If we want to get to the point where we could hope to win over a massive majority of the population to socialism, fighting the vampire castle is a strategic imperative. As Fisher says, the VC doesn't know how to make converts, but that, after all, is not the point. Instead, leftists who are in the grips of this way of doing things often treat the left like a clubhouse that needs to be guarded to make sure that no one who doesn't hold all the correct positions and know all the correct ways of speaking and acting gets to step inside. You can't act that way and become a movement of and not just for the working class majority of society. One of the oddest reactions I've gotten when I've told people that I was writing a book called Canceling Comedians While the World Burns is, why do you think idiots yelling at comedians is important enough to write a book about? Or is cancel culture that big a deal? Don't you have higher political priorities? The answer is yes, and that's the point. When outraged Romans charged Nero with fiddling while Rome burned, they weren't saying that the annoying way the emperor played his fiddle was more important than the fact that Rome was burning. They were saying that him playing the fiddle instead of doing something about the fire was a problem. But at least his fiddling wasn't making the fire worse. That's where the analogy breaks down. Even if you only spend a few minutes a day tweeting toxic bile at the problematic, and you devote a dozen hours a week to your DSA chapter's labor organizing working group, those few minutes a day contribute to giving outside observers a deeply unappetizing impression of the left. The larger subject, of which canceling comedians is a representative example, is a cluster of left pathologies that include everything from the revival of tanky attitudes, i.e. knee-jerk apologism for every authoritarian regime that makes use of socialist rhetoric and symbolism, to hysteria about minor political differences within the left, to the bad habit of framing disparities between different groups primarily in terms of introspective psychodrama about unearned privilege, as if the absence of oppression were something that had to be earned. There are good arguments against all of these things in principle. What I'm most concerned with is to show in what follows, though, is that they're all symptoms of the failure of the contemporary left to think strategically instead of turning politics into a moral performance. In other words, I'm interested in convincing my friends and comrades to stop acting this way because I don't want us to lose. This is not an I'm a leftist but book. While I don't necessarily think the most fire-breathingly radical slogans that any element of the left puts forward on any given issue are always especially helpful, you're not going to find any particularly heterodox policy positions here. My attitude is well represented by one of my favorite quotes from Christopher Hitchens. It comes from Blunt Instruments, an essay that Hitch wrote in the mid-1980s, i.e. about 2.5 decades before his own post-9/11 turn to the dark side. Hitchens writes, I have never been able, except in my lazier moments, to employ the word predictable as a term of abuse, nor has the expression knee-jerk ever struck me as a witty way of denigrating a set of strongly held convictions. Speaking purely for myself, I would be alarmed if my knee failed to respond to certain stimuli. It would warn me of a loss of nerve. I have written in the past year about the MX missile, constructive engagement, the confirmation of Edwin Meese, and other grand Guignola episodes. Naturally, I hope that my arguments were original, but I would be depressed to think that anyone who knew me or my stuff could not have easily predicted the line I would take. In the charmed circle of neoliberal and neoconservative journalism, however, unpredictability is the special emblem and certificate of self-congratulation. To be able to bray that as a liberal, I say bomb the shit out of them, is to have achieved that eye-catching, versatile marketability that is so beloved by editors and talk show hosts. As a lifelong socialist, I say, don't let's bomb the shit out of them. See what I mean? It lacks the sex appeal somehow. Predictable as hell. All right, end of Hitchens' quote. I'm fully committed to the full range of predictable as hell leftist goals, from guaranteeing free abortion on demand as part of a comprehensive system of single-payer national health insurance, to stopping America's endless wars in the Middle East, to working towards the replacement of the existing economic order with some sort of democratic socialist alternative that treats workers not as tools for moving packages around Jeff Bezos' warehouses, but as human beings with a right to a far greater level of control over their lives, both on and off the job. I'm writing this book because I care about the same goals as the people I'm critiquing, and I believe that their way of doing things is often deeply counterproductive. All right, I think I'm going to leave it off there for this little reading.